Hello, everyone. It's Freddie C. That's right. I'm doing the cold open. I haven't done one of these in a long time. Right, Jared? I can't even remember the last time I did one of these.
I think it was when I was concussed.
Yeah, exactly. It's when you were concussed. I think you were off 2 episodes, and I had to lead those 2, which was pretty interesting. We got to talk to Trevor. But I have a story that was very cold open worthy, right? And so just waking up this morning, I do my thing. I go grab my toothbrush, getting ready to brush my teeth. I stand in the hallway, and there is Eric Eilerson looking straight at me, brushing his own teeth. And I'm just like, what the heck is going on here? So it's crazy because Eric Eilerson is here to, he's staying at my place. I'm about 25 minutes from Disneyland. And so I picked him up at the airport, and I see this guy wearing an Ahsoka shirt and this massive R2D2 luggage, just staring, waving at me. And there he is, and he's in my car, he's in my house, he's taken over. I'm surprised he's not here right now, but
that would have been cool. I should have just let you guys do the show this week.
Yeah, he's at Disneyland right now, so he's a bit busy, but it's just the weirdest thing to see somebody you've only talked to, right, on the stream, brushing his teeth, looking at you, saying, "Hey, dude."
That is crazy. That is excellent. Well, you know what else is excellent? This episode of Legends Lookback. And I do want to say, Freddie, I'm like a little bit jealous. I mean, not of having Eric in my house. Yeah, obviously, that would be great. I don't think who among us wouldn't want Eric to come and visit in person. But specifically, I had 2 trips to California, tickets booked and everything that I had to cancel, in which I was going to come bunk with you. And I don't have R2D2 luggage. My luggage is like being held together with plastic zip ties because I'm redneck like that. But I have been loving the pictures that Eric's been posting from Galaxy's Edge, and looking forward to being able to get out there myself one of these days. And everybody want to follow Eric on Instagram if you want to check out his pictures from the park. I can't wait to hear him recap that on the Living Force. I mean, it's going to happen though, right? Isn't he going to do like a full trip breakdown? He's got to.
He has to. He absolutely has to. He looked so exhausted yesterday after he got home. I was like, geez, dude, where'd you go? You sure you didn't go to Batu?
The only more tiring thing than doing Disney is doing Disney with kids. Am I right?
Oh, goodness. I can't even imagine what that's like.
You know what isn't nearly as tiring as doing Disney with kids? This episode of Legends Look Back. We are dying to get into it. So without further ado, let's start the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Legends Look Back, proudly part of the Youtini podcast network. This is a Star Wars books podcast for people who yell cowabunga when they dip their dunkaroos, where we celebrate our rich EU history as well as dive into lesser-known Star Wars classics. I'm your host, Jared Mays, and I'm joined by the most hospitable man in the galaxy, Freddie C.
How's it going, guys? I can confirm that Eric Eilerson brushes his teeth for a full 2 minutes.
Now, here's the question: is how tall is he?
We're about eye level, so we look straight at each other. There's no supremacy there for anybody.
We've got an ongoing inside joke at Youtini about how tall everybody is in person for those who have met each other, because the joke is that Corey is kind of short, and that Charles is freakishly tall.
Yeah,
as is Timothy. And so it's like when you meet people in person. I met Emma, very tall, probably my height. And, like I'm average height for a man. I'm like 5'11", and it was like, whoa, she's my height. Didn't expect that. So, Freddie, I have no idea how tall you are. Don't tell me. Don't spoil it.
Okay.
I'm going to find out one of these days when I make it to California. I do, however, know how tall Rick Grace is because we were friends from college. I've actually met him in person. He does exist. Him with or without glasses. Tonight, no glasses. How are you, Rick?
I'm good. Red Leader is standing by.
Oh, he does have glasses.
I am ready to go. I'm so excited about this episode.
They're goggles.
I'm loving that.
Yeah,
The
man.
fact that you have to hold your headphone to your ears is so great.
That's right.
That's the thumbnail. Somebody write that down. For sure.
I love it.
Oh,
For sure.
glad
Oh
to make my
gosh.
thumbnail debut.
It's time. It's time. I love that it's got a chin strap.
Yeah, man. It kind of hurts, but I like it.
That's
Things
that's
we do for
tonight's-
beauty.
I know.
That's what I'm tweeting tonight with that thumbnail. Is it kind of hurts, but I like it.
It's good stuff.
The
good stuff.
Legends Look Back slogan. You know who else loves Legends Look Back? Our other host for this evening, Emily Daybeck. How are you?
I'm doing okay, Jared. I'm doing okay. I'm really excited to be here, though. I'm excited to do my first round table with a Legends book. Actually get to talk about it with people. Very, very exciting.
Is it really? It's your first like true Legends book roundtable. Everybody, round of applause
Yeah.
for Emily.
Ooh,
Never not too loudly so as to wake her baby. Don't want to wake the child.
We don't talk about though.
If you do, you're crying tonight.
Mhm.
It's CORRAN HORN. It's CORRAN HORN. He, kind of a crybaby. And we're gonna be talking about
Spoiler alert.
the old school classic. You could even call it essential Legends book, Rogue Squadron. I know what you're thinking tonight. Hey, didn't you guys already cover Rogue Squadron? The answer to that is shut up. No, we did. It was Legends Look Back episode 4. Hey, long time ago. I went back and re-listened to it recently to see I've got these new essential Legends collections. We're going to be covering these. Want to try to get as many of them in as we can. We got this new audiobook we wanted to cover. We can't get our hands on that one. What was that? When did that come out? September? Wanted to find a way to cover it. Went back and was like, maybe we could reuse that old episode. No, we could not. Freddie was impeccable. You could call him nigh perfect. However, we've grown a lot, haven't we, Freddie, since episode 4?
We have two people who just fit in this show. I can't even think of an analogy right now other than puzzle piece. But I'm so glad to talk about this book again. I can't stop. It's one of my top favorites. Everybody has an opinion on this book, and I feel like there's really no in between. So I'm excited to talk about it, especially with the audiobook. The audiobook is amazing. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah. On the one hand, yes, we are redoing our Rogue Squadron roundtable. On the other hand, we want to get more perspectives, want to hear Rick and Emily's take on this. And on the other hand, hey, if you have already listened to that old episode, we are not doing the same questions. There will be some overlap here and there because, of course, this is, the same book that we did, 2 years ago. However, we are going to be going into deep detail on evaluating this new audiobook performance that is recently been released by Penguin Random House Audio, performed by Mark Thompson. Finally, I've probably clamored every time, man, countless, how do I even say this? I have sent in so many requests through random social media channels to the powers that be at Del Rey, at Audible, at Penguin Random House Audio, just begging for Rogue Squadron audiobooks. So, I don't know what actually made their decision, but I'd like to think I get a little bit of the credit. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah,
I'd say so. I'd say we are the reason they brought it back into a possible show. So
Yeah.
It feels like that episode of The Office where Michael and Dwight are outside of David Wallace's house when the branch was closing, and then they think it's he wasn't even at home. They went there to try to sway him, convince him, to save the branch. But all the other scenes in the episode are, how they offer the job to Josh, who then leverages his offer against corporate. Wow, this is a really deep analogy. All right, committing, going with it. Of course, the guy leverages his offer, doesn't get the job. So then they decide they're going to make Scranton, they're going to keep it. They're going to absorb into it. And they save the branch. And at the end, they get the message, we saved the branch. And they say, we did it. That's how it feels. Freddie,
Yes.
It feels like we're giving ourselves credit, even though, it probably had nothing to do with us.
Nice.
And
Just
nothing
speak it
to
into
do with the
existence.
movie coming out soon. Nothing at all. It was just purely your persistence, the squeaky wheel.
There is a
Goodness.
movie. There is a movie. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that for sure. Oh, man, I forgot about it. I mean, because it's they made the announcement. It's off the radar. No trailer.
Yeah.
It's going to be made. Who knows where it's at in its development. We've got plenty of Legends books to read in the meantime. I don't get antsy about these kinds of things like I did in that 2-3 years leading up to The Force Awakens. Man, that was intense.
Mm-hmm.
However, in preparing for this show, I was like, oh yeah, there is a movie coming out. Goodness. Whew, I'm excited for that. We're going to talk about our hopes and dreams for that. Tonight, we are not going to get into the weeds with Thraken's Thrift Store or Legends Lookout, but I can't help myself. I do have one thing to show off. I had my 30th birthday this week. Freddie, you got the candles there for us to blow out? You got the candles?
Got them.
Okay, you don't have to wish me happy birthday, but I do want to show off this rad Legends-y shirt that my wife got me for my birthday. It is for Power Rangers fans. Here we go.
Oh my goodness.
The Angel Grove Youth Center Gym and Juice Bar shirt.
Nice.
So cool.
I'm very proud of it. It's kind of silky smooth too, nice and fresh. It's still got that new shirt smell. You know what I'm talking about?
The Target smell.
Here's the question. When I wear this out in the wild, is anybody going to see it and recognize it?
Definitely.
Ooh.
Are they going to see it and say, go Power Rangers, right?
That's a tough one. I feel like I don't know how many people would actually understand that that's a Power Ranger reference. The ones who do, though,
Yeah.
those are the real ones.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's
Those are
subtle,
keepers.
but yeah, you know your people when they do recognize it.
That's right. It's like just subtle enough. What's subtle? Like a huge smoothie on your shirt.
I'm sure someone's gonna see it and not even like consciously recognize it, but just they're gonna have a subconscious better day because of that shirt. Just
Let's hope so,
gonna
Rick.
mesh with their childhood and all that.
You know what? It would look even better if I was wearing a homemade Rogue Squadron pilot helmet
So
Yeah,
cool.
this
with
is
a chin strap.
this is the one that I showed off, or I had a picture of from the Get to Know You episode where I had the stupid white arms. Remember that one?
Yeah.
So
That's my screensaver.
it's probably
I'm
good
just kidding,
for
it's not,
Halloween. It'll scare
Yeah,
the
it's
children.
good inspiration. Scare the
I
children.
love it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the only thing that's missing besides the white arms, Rick, is the awkwardly shaven face.
Oh yes, that's fair, and that's not happening. You have to pay me for that. Hey, but because we haven't yet, I just want to say, Naked Palpatine. It's been a while, so I just wanted to make sure we had that mentioned at least once.
Well, what's remarkable about what the heck just made a noise behind me? I hope it wasn't Palpatine.
The slimy
Ooh.
noise of Palpatine
Somehow.
as he entered the room.
Ew.
Well, so we're working on some stuff behind the scenes, and Wes sent something over to Rick that when he unboxed it had an image of naked Palpatine plastered across the front. And so
Yes. Yes.
I love that the meme lives on. It's also lived on very well over on the Cosmic Force. They've done a great job. I want to give a shout out to our sister show, the Cosmic Force. Great job, especially at referencing naked Palpatine on a consistent, regular basis. Well done over there. Actually wanted to plug specifically for the Legends community that we did a show last night. Jacob, Caleb, and myself, both Emma and Tyler, were slain in a Sith duel right before the show could begin. I don't know who did it. It wasn't me. I got to fill their spot, and we talked all about the art of legendary comics artist Jan Duursma. And so she was we called her the most prolific and influential Star Wars comics artist of all time. And I stand by that. I stand by it. Don't you think so, Freddie?
Yeah,
Big
I really
Duursma
think
fan.
so.
I actually had to fight you for who was going to get that slot on the show, right?
Yeah. Originally, we were, we both volunteered for it. It's, Jan Duursma is one of my favorite artists for sure. Her stories are great as well. I do want to mention there was a whole row of figurines right here that just fell down after we talked about Naked Palpatine. So
Wait,
it
was
might
that
be a
noise
sign.
on your end? I thought it was behind me.
It must have been on both, but yeah, every single one of them. There's like 6 of them on the floor right now.
Is there a dyad in the Force?
Oh.
You keep that canon nonsense out of my Legends show, Rick.
It was either that or an earthquake.
I
Who
was
knows?
wondering if that would fly.
I was about to say earthquake sounds more like it.
Well, I can't wait for us to I'm hoping that in the spring we can have Caleb over here on our show to talk about the Quinlan Vos and Ayla Secura storyline from the Republic comics, from Dark Horse in like the early to mid 2000s. Absolutely, for my money, some of the finest Legends storytelling of all time.
Yes.
The way that they're able to keep you guessing on is Quinlan Vos, light side, dark side. Do you think we can call him the original Gray Jedi, Freddie?
Oh yeah, I would say so. Quinlan Vos is how do I put this? Every time I read about Quinlan Voss, I can just sit there thinking, I know, buddy, me too. I feel like he just sides with my logic of what's wrong with the Jedi, and they take themselves too seriously, and he doesn't really take himself too seriously, although he does fall down a pretty deep rabbit hole.
Yeah. Man, what's fun is you've got a story arc with Aayla Secura and Quinlan Voss, and then you jump over and you've got like a Obi-Wan and Anakin adventure, so cool. And Obi-Wan's rivalry with Asajj Ventress in that series is excellent. Man, it's really dark and moody. You want yourself some dark and moody Obi-Wan. That's where you go. All right. Well, I'll start ranting about that. If you want to check that out, that is the Cosmic Force episode 27 that launched last night. Listen to this live Wednesday, October 20th, 2021.
So awesome.
Huge shout out to our bros, our friends over there at the Cosmic Force, putting in great work. And before we move on to the main part of the show, we're going to talk about the Rogue Squadron book as well as the audiobook. Hey, we do want to give a plug for something that's coming up soon in our Discord. We're going to be tackling the A.C. Crispin Han Solo trilogy as a book club, kind of experiment with our friends over in the Legends Books Discord channel with our Youtini Discord. And so if you're not a part of that, hey, if you're an audio listener and you're not plugged into that Youtini ecosystem, now would be a good time. Get your hands on some good Legends Hut content. Nobody writes Huts better than AC Crispin. Am I right?
No, it's some good stuff. I'm really excited. November. Oh, there's going to be a lot of reading in November.
Well, I've been slowly making my way through the Hut Gambit, and by slowly I mean 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 6 months
at a Hut's pace.
That's right. That's right, and not like those jacked canon huts. No, we're talking about old school Legends huts where the only way you can get around is via hover sled. Slow hover sleds. Well, before we get into it tonight, let's plug our Youtini network of shows, and then we are going to talk all about the original expanded universe book featuring non-original trilogy characters-ish, depending on how we want to classify that. I'll work on the intro. Rick, roll the tape.
Lightsaber lamp, and I just I just knocked over everything in my office so I could get this into the camera shot. I knocked one of the posters off the wall.
Anderson cover. I have heard the Anderson cover described by some friends of mine as one of their least favorite Legends covers, and I don't totally know why. Maybe it's just because Depa Billaba has this dead stare in the background.
You know what it is?
Emma, what is your art of the week this week?
Yeah, so I don't have anything as dark and depressing as that corpse, but
as we discussed just a moment ago, we do have a new movie that has been announced that is going to be directed by Patty Jenkins that is called Rogue Squadron, which she says she wants to make the greatest fighter pilot movie ever made, or something like that. Rogue Squadron has become all the more in the limelight. Also, just this past month, we had a Central Legends Collection reprint, part of this new ongoing series from our friends over at Del Rey, in which it got this... what do we call these things? Trade paperbacks or mass market paperbacks? I can never get
trade.
the name
These
right.
are trade.
The trade.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rick. Yeah, the trade paperbacks of the X-Wing series. It has now begun with one book. How many are we going to get? There's 10 total. Will we get all 10? I doubt it, but we've at least got the first one. We also now have a new audiobook recorded by the legend Mark Thompson himself. All the more reason for us here on Legends Look Back to dive into everything you need to know about Rogue Squadron. Guys, want to go around the table and ask, what's your experience with this book? When did you first read this? What was your first impression? How has it changed from then until now? Any juicy tidbits to share? Freddie, I know you've read this at least once before because we talked about it a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. My first exposure to X-Wing Rogue Squadron, it was actually the video game Rogue Squadron. My very first Nintendo 64 game. I could smell the apple cinnamon candle burning now during the wintertime. It was so memorable. And That was when
that wasn't the sound of a Y-wing crashing. The smell of a Y-wing crashing.
Yeah. I can't remember when I first grabbed the book, but when I first played the game, I was very young. I mean, I wasn't reading Star Wars books at all yet, but definitely I would say when I first picked it up, it was I had seen it in the back of True Set Bakura. It was one of the printed books, and I was like, oh, okay. Let me try this one. X-wing. I love ships. So let me just give this book a shot. And I'll never forget reading it in middle school, just being absolutely floored by what I just read. I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah, it gets heavy.
Yeah.
I remember being probably middle school as well. And, not everybody lives. At one particular, we're not going to spoil it quite yet. But at one point as a kid, I was like, oh, these characters are dying. I don't like that. I don't like that one bit. I'm returning this thing to the library. And so I didn't end up getting to, finish this book in its entirety until maybe 2013, 2012. I read, most of the Legends books in those 2, 3, 4 year time gap there before The Force Awakens came out. Cause I was like, got to read them all now. I've got to, bide my Star Wars enthusiasm. How about you guys? Emily, I know this was your first read. Is that right?
It's right. Yeah, I knew how much Corey hated CORRAN HORN because he can't stop talking about it. So when I finally got to read a book about him, I was really curious why Corey hates him so much, because I thought he was an eminently reasonable character. So anyway, I've got other thoughts, but they can wait.
There's quite a bit of lore built up behind the scenes with Corey and CORRAN HORN here, right? They've got the same initials. Rick Corey infamously despises how am I butchering all these titles tonight? I Jedi. There is a huge character arc for CORRAN HORN in Legends. This is the beginning of it. Now, infamously, and I need to pull up the soundbite of this so we can play it on the show maybe next week. Corey did say that in his re-listen to this audiobook, which he did fairly recently, that he found CORRAN HORN as a much more tolerable character than he remembered.
I heard that.
Let that go on the record.
We'll talk
more about CORRAN HORN in a second, but when he said it, you guys cannot imagine how wide I grinned from ear to ear to hear Corey say that about CORRAN HORN. Rick, how many times have you read Rogue Squadron?
So this was my second time through, and I think it is the first Legends book that I have reread. So it was cool to get a second pass at it. And very similar to Freddy, I loved it because of the jargon and the ships and the fighter combat. All of that fleet combat, that's what I love about sci-fi, and Star Wars does not disappoint. And this book was filled with it. And the series, I've read I think the first 4 books of the series. And some of the books kind of get out of space into other environments, and I want them to go back and fight in their starfighters. But it is what it is. I don't think I caught much this time because it's been several years since I read them, and so I was just trying to keep up and kind of refresh my memory.
Now, there's a lot of debate that goes on behind the scenes. We always get people, I would say once a week, don't you think? Somebody pops over into the Legends Books Discord and asks this exact question. Hey, I want to read the New Jedi Order. I want to read Legacy of the Force. I want to read one of these huge post-Return of the Jedi Legends series. What are all the books that I have to read before I hit it? And, spoiler alert, behind the scenes, we don't all agree on the correct answer to this. I recently collaborated with Nathan on a New Jedi Order video project, and he and I had a little bit of disagreement on what are the essential Legends reads before New Jedi Order. I'll say this much. I had read Rogue Squadron, but not the whole series, before tackling that, before that huge journey, New Jedi Order, Legacy of the Force, Fate of the Jedi. Then I went back and read the rest of the X-Wing series, and it all clicked into place. It's not necessarily capital N necessary. However, there's so many beautiful, wonderful, playful, delightful payoffs later on in Legends if you have read these. What's your take on this, Freddie? As somebody who's read quite a bit of that post-Return of the Jedi stuff, are the X-Wing books essential to understanding all of it?
Yeah. So the thing about a lot of people, it's a hot how do I put this? The fandom is split with everything. There's
everything.
people that dislike something about something. And it doesn't bug me because I know what I like and I like it all, to be honest. But when it comes to Rogue Squadron, I used to call it X-Wing, but Rogue Squadron is honestly one of my top 5 books that you must read. It gives you a sense of what Rogue Squadron is, who they are, but it's also it's a different setting, right? We get a lot of action on ground, maybe fighting action, but how often do we get starship action, just pure starship action without the influence of the Force, right? These are just and I put an asterisk on that, but how often do we get to read a Star Wars book without having to see a Jedi all the time? It doesn't happen often, but when it does, they're good stories, right? Like the Republic Commandos, great stories.
I would say these books have a little bit of the Force, but no lightsabers, right? So there's that. In the Force, it's like you don't really realize it until you're a few books in, unless you're picking up what he's putting down, which in my reread through this time around, I was like, yeah, it doesn't seem so subtle this time. But maybe that's because I know. Maybe
I think it's because you know.
Yeah, we won't spoil that one for tonight. But it does have the Force, doesn't have lightsabers. We should do this episode one of these days, Freddie. Write this down. The things that Star Wars fans are divided on, and we'll give like our hot takes. Did you know there's even like a in fandom debate over which appendages Max Rebo uses to play his piano?
Well, I think the one thing that we can all agree on is
Emily's
that
like, what?
Han shot first, guys.
Yeah.
That's the one that no one's divisive of, right? We can all agree.
I have actually said these exact words on this channel, on this exact show. Greedo shot first. I've said it.
You have. You definitely have.
It was mostly just to punk Cheryl, who is like very heated on this particular topic. I don't actually subscribe to it, but I'm not especially up in arms. Or if you're Max Rebo, up in feet.
Yeah.
It depends. It depends. Let's talk about the behind the scenes, the history of Rogue Squadron. This book was first published in 1996. Let's go around the table here. Do you guys? I want to get your guess. When is the first appearance of Rogue Squadron in Star Wars? This is a little bit of a trick question. You have a guess the first time that Rogue Squadron appeared? Is it in this book, or is it in something else?
I can't remember the timeline. Did this book come out before the video game? I guess that's a good question.
I'm really hoping this question stumps y'all.
It stumped me. I mean, I can't even think about when the first.
So there's an X-Wing video game that came out on PC in '93. It was called X-Wing. Then the N64, the Rogue Squadron. The game called Rogue Squadron came out in 98.
Yes.
So after this book, you gonna guess the 93 PC game?
You stumped me, man. This is one of the first stumps I've ever been stumped on. Yeah, I'll stick with the game. I'll go with the game for now. I can't. I'm trying to think about this, and I can't. It's not popping up. So.
Okay. Rick, what do you think? What's your guess? First appearance of Rogue Squadron.
Man.
And let us know, everybody in the chat. What's your guess?
Yeah. So man, honestly, my gut is saying that it was a small reference in the original trilogy, but that's probably not right. So I'm gonna say some like role-playing West End resource or something has it.
You're partially right, Rick.
Ooh,
okay.
Interesting.
So, let Emily answer before I spoil it.
Okay.
First appearance of Rogue Squadron, Emily.
These are my
Nobody's totally guessed it right
questions.
perfectly yet, at least as far as I have my data. I could be wrong.
I'm gonna guess episode 5.
Okay, so
Is
you
that
and
a
Rick,
question?
are a little bit
That's an
right.
option. A little bit right. Okay, I mean that's better than not at all right. So I'll take it.
Yeah.
That's right. On Hoth, the Battle of Hoth, Luke Skywalker in the Snowspeeder Squadron belongs to alongside, I almost said Wes Jenkins. What's his name?
Biggs.
Biggs is dead by then. Dak dies, so Dak is in the group.
That was actually a cheat code. Dead Dak.
Jansen. We
Jansen.
got a Wes Jenkins on the team, and there's a Wes Jansen in Star Wars.
Oh, Wes?
This connection. Yeah, Wes. Yeah, did you hear my accent? So there's Rogue Group in The Empire Strikes Back. They're not properly called Rogue Squadron.
Really?
And they don't
Okay.
fly X-Wings.
Right.
They fly snowspeeders.
Do they say rogue group?
Rogue Group.
Interesting.
Correct.
Okay.
Rogue Group. So it is like a little bit right.
Yeah.
A little bit right. There's a lot of competing origin stories in Legends and in canon for the original appearance of Rogue Squadron. Like, when was it named? Why was it named? Obviously, it's been retconned since 2016 to have been an homage to Rogue One, right? Jyn Erso's crew that takes on the mission on Scarif, but not in Legends.
Right.
There ain't no Jyn Erso in Legends. We've got the original Jyn Erso. What's her name? I forgot.
Biggs!
Yeah, not Biggs. I love your impression of Mark Hamill saying Biggs, though. Pretty good.
Please just let that keep coming back. Bring it back around.
Bringing it back around, the first appearance of Rogue Squadron that I have on record, and like I said, I could be wrong. Please correct me in the chat or in the Discord if you can find competing information, and I'll give you some kind of a trophy. Got a couple of spare Thrawn Trilogy books laying around here. I could mail you if you correct me. All right. The first appearance of Rogue Squadron, as far as I'm concerned, is actually in Heir to the Empire. With shirtless Sabayoth himself. Heir to the Empire. Timothy Zahn introduces Rogue Squadron. Ancillary characters come in a couple of different times in the Thrawn Trilogy, published 91, 92, and 93. And then Mike Stackpole, who worked quite closely with Tim Zahn, asked for permission and said, hey, I'd love to do a series about these characters. You did such a great job at establishing who they are and what they're about. They're dynamic. Let's run with that. And boy, did he run with that. He didn't just run with it. He flew with it. Am I right?
It's a good one. I liked it.
Oh, yeah. Hey, thank you. So for the timeline, in classic Legends fashion, the Thrawn Trilogy is set later in the timeline. All right, hang on to your butts here. It's set later in the timeline, a few years after Rogue Squadron. But then the book is written afterward, but then is talking about the characters established in the book that then takes place a few years later. And also has a video game that comes out a couple years later. But first, there was another video game from a few years before that. But it doesn't end there, does it, Freddie? There's comics.
Yep.
There's comics. Tell us about the comics. We've got, how many issues to this? 30, 35 issues?
Yeah, there's about 35 issues. And I believe they started publishing in 95. And the run lasted till 98. And it's honestly, I'm not sure how many people have actually read through the X-Wing comics, but they're so good. The art is wonderful. If you love X-Wings, ships, fighting, etc., it's definitely worth a pickup. Have you read them, Jared?
I've read most of them, some of them. I honestly can't remember how many I've read. I'm gonna have to pick up I've got the Epic collections down here, but maybe I'll wait till next year because we do have, however, a big omnibus coming out next year, which we just talked about last week. This isn't the right one, but yeah, there's a few, 2 or 3 Marvel Epic collections have all the stories in them there. And then we're going to get this new hardcover omnibus coming out next year with 2 different covers, as we talked about on last week's show. If you want more information on those comics, they're set concurrently. They're written concurrently with the books. So they're published throughout, what'd you say, Freddie? 95 through 98.
Yeah, 95 through 98.
So they're being written at the same time by Mike Stackpole, but then they're set as a prequel to the books. So one more time, Rogue Squadron originates in Heir to the Empire, which is set after the Rogue Squadron books, but they were written before the Rogue Squadron books. Then there's also comics that are written at the same time as the books that are set before the books. So chronologically, it goes comics, the X-Wing books, then the Thrawn Trilogy books.
Another way to think about it is the first time that the comic books were published was 2 years after the first episode of Power Rangers.
There we go. That's our point of origin. It was 94, right?
BBPR.
95, 94, something like that.
Okay. Yeah. Would you say BBMMPR?
Yeah, that works.
Perfect. Yeah, this is of course part of a 10-book series co-authored by the late great Aaron Alston. He wrote the Wraith Squadron books. So the first 4 books compose the Rogue Squadron series. Then you have the 3-book Wraith Squadron Trilogy. And then just a few more for good measure, because why not? And they're great and we love them. And then, of course, in 2012, 1 more book was added onto the series as the swan song of the X-Wing series in X-Wing Mercy Kill, following Wedge, I'm messing up his name, Wedge Antilles' daughter, who is now leading her own squadron, which is super cool. And it was great to get one last hoorah from Aaron Alston 2 years before he died. May he rest in peace. What's amazing about these, of course, is that they were the first EU books to feature primarily original characters. Some original trilogy characters make appearances, such as Mon Mothma and Admiral Akbar and, Wedge Antilles. But for the most part, we are dealing with primarily original characters. Can we talk for a second about how groundbreaking that was for Bantam to take the risk on letting Star Wars go in this new direction that really doesn't have original trilogy characters?
Yeah, it's amazing to think that, okay, let's publish a series of books based on people you've never heard of, and we're going to make you care about them fairly significantly, and it's going to be a smash.
And they're going to go on to be some of the most beloved Star Wars books of all time. Now, Rick, as a hardback collector, I'm going to pitch this one to you. How much do you think the hardback is worth of X-Wing Rogue Squadron, first book of the series?
Let's see. I think I paid. Actually, I don't think there is one. I'm gonna call BS. Doesn't exist.
Emily, what do you think?
What? I want to be with Rick on this one. I want to think it's a trick question.
Freddie, what's your guess? How much is the hardback?
Not in my collection, I'll tell you that.
It's not in your collection. Yeah, there are some really expensive Legends books, hardcovers out there. You are right. You are absolutely right there, Rick. Unless I'm wrong, and there's something neither of us know about.
Man.
There could be something in like the aftermarket, like from like overseas. You never know what they're doing over there in like England, in Japan.
That's true.
The uncharted regions.
See, I was really hoping to call your bluff with that whole, how much I paid for my thing, Jared. I was waiting for you to be like, wait a minute, what? But that never happened, so.
We are going to have, however, a hardcover of the comics coming out next year. So for that reason, I am going to get it. I would love to get these in hardcover. I've actually legitimately looked into like self-printing them for my own collection in hardcover, just for my that's how you've gone off the deep end, guys.
So, I mean, let's do it together.
I want to ask Emily a question. As someone who has not read this, right? This is like part of my childhood. This is nostalgia. I'm pointing back there because all the books are back there. Not all of my books, just some of them. There's a ton more over here. Anyway, as someone who's never, that you didn't grow up with this, just think about what Bantam did. How does that, now that we just talked about that, how does that feel? Thinking about just first time non-canon characters completely out of Left Wing.
Well, I've read a few books. I read a few canon and Legends books. So, and getting started in the Legends universe is, I kind of came prepared for the unexpected. I have read about some of these characters though, and I can't remember which specific books. I was trying to look it up before the show started, but I couldn't get a track of them. But I mean, it's kind of exciting because it's a side of Star Wars I haven't really seen since Lost Stars. That was the first book I read. I haven't really read much into the military side of things. I've mostly been interested in like Force lore and that kind of thing. So it was definitely a different side than I expected, and I really liked what they did with it. They really played into like a sense of loss, and like you really get the sense of like that any of these characters could really die at any mission, and that I think leads you, it puts you as the reader in a place of urgency. Like, oh, I need to read as much as I can because this character could die. I don't know. It was an interesting, experience.
Yeah, that's cool. To me, it's like, I've read them plenty of times. But
you know whose days are numbered.
You know whose days are numbered. But the first time when you do read it, I remember what it was like to see some of these people go, and you're like, wait a minute, that's possible in this book. That's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
Well, yeah, it really is, and that's the fun thing about having original characters. You can do whatever you want with them. You can make them soar to new heights, as some of these characters do, and you can make them crash in flames, as many of them do as well. Yeah, including Biggs. F's in the chat for Biggs. Now, one other fun little tidbit before we get into some of the spoiler-heavy territory here, that Rogue Squadron was recently reintroduced in canon with Jason Fry's story in from a certain point of view, The Empire Strikes Back. I think it was the longest story in that entire anthology book. Was Jason Fry went all in on a Rogue Squadron story, and very delightful for Legends fans. Very different than what we have in this story. Different crew, mixes it up a little bit, but it's kind of the formation of Rogue Squadron, building on the Rogue One origin story, and then eventually getting us to what's going on there in The Empire Strikes Back. So without further ado, this is going to be spoiler-heavy territory, folks. So you have been warned. This is your chance. And, of course, if you would like your copy of X-Wing Rogue Squadron, you can even get that Audible audiobook over by going to Youtini.com. Click on the Audible... How do you even say this? The Audible audiobook pop-up link down in the corner, and you can get your own free copy on us. You're welcome. Well, here we go. The plot for Rogue Squadron picks up 2.5 years after the Battle of Endor, as the New Republic is in need of eliminating the last few straggling Imperial warlords. Warlord Zinch, who's going to be featured in the Race Squadron books, as well as Yasani Isard. That's right, old Iceheart herself. Rogue Squadron has a legacy as the best of the best in the pilots among the rebel ranks, but also like as a group that's done a lot of dying. They've died as heroes. That's how they've cemented that legacy. So at this particular point in the story, Rogue Squadron is in need of a restart, and that's where we jump in. Wedge Antilles commands this group, and his second in command is none other than Tycho Selchu. However, prior to the events of this novel, Tycho had just, been captured on Coruscant, brainwashed in an Imperial prison, but he escaped, so he returned to the rebels, but nobody trusts him. There's a whole aura of suspicion surrounding Tycho Selchu, so they think he's an Imperial sleeper agent, but Wedge really wants to trust him, so the compromise is this. He gets to fly with the Rogues, but not in an X-Wing. He's in a Lambda-class shuttle with no weapons, no big deal. Probably not gonna ever come into play. Can't get him, in too much trouble, right? No weapons. He is a sitting duck out there in space, but he does it because he loves his squadron. Am I right? The lingering question throughout all the book is this: will Tycho turn traitor? Well, hey, joining Wedge and Tycho is none other than the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only, everybody's favorite space cop with daddy issues, CORRAN HORN. He, of course, doesn't believe that Tycho is here for the right reasons and is constantly second-guessing his every move. He's formerly of the Corellian security force known as CORSEC. He's a detective and a pilot, and he doesn't take no gruff from nobody. As a detective, Corran's quite the truther, undercutting Tycho at every turn. Their objective in this story is to take down Imperial warlord Yasani Isard, Palpatine's former secret lover, or something like that. Anyway, Isard commands her own fleet of Star Destroyers and, importantly, her own Super Star Destroyer, the Lusankya. But where exactly is she stashing it? Doesn't make an appearance in this book. That's for Rogue Squadron to find out and blow it up. Isard deploys intelligence agent Kirtan Lore to track down Rogue Squadron and eliminate them. Being an analytical weasel, Lore figures out how to track down the Rogues to their base at Telesea, where he does the totally normal thing of sending in stormtroopers to murder them in their sleep. Man, I hate that guy so much. Lou Jane Forge dies in the assault. F's in the chat for Lou Jane, serving as the reformed Rogue's first casualty. The first major space battle, the major space battle of the book is at the planet of Borleus. There's actually two battles of Borleus, if we're being technical. The Rogues plan on taking it as an easy target to serve as a staging point, but, it's a trap. Long story short, take 2 on Borleus as CORRAN leads a second attempt. He almost dies in the process, is rescued by Wedge's smuggler friend, Mirax Tarek, and that's our cliffhanger at the end of the book. So let's go around the horn. Emily, let's start with you. This was your first read through. What was your impression on Rogue Squadron? And then secondly, what is your impression of the audiobook? Do you go higher or lower with the audiobook itself?
Well, the audiobook is my only experience. So I'm only reading the audiobook. I can't rate it against the actual book. I really liked it. It was a bit disorienting and very action-packed, just to be kind of thrown in the middle of like, there was no like, oh, we're forming up Rogue Squadron. It was like, nope, you're just like in a simulator right off the bat. And then you end in a battle. So it's just like constant action, which was a lot to take in right at the beginning. But I liked it. Do you want me to give my rating yet?
Yeah, go ahead and give the number.
I'm going to do a 7.3.
Okay, that's
Not
like
bad.
reasonable. Sure.
Yep.
Do you go higher or lower with your audiobook score?
Well, like I said, that was my only experience. So
But like, what'd you think of the performance?
I
You
thought
can
it
at
was
least give an
really, really good. My only beef was Gavin's voice. That was it.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a lot
Like-
to take in.
That was a very obnoxious voice.
Mhm.
So I would say the audiobook is probably like a 7.8.
Okay, Rick.
So what was the question? All the above?
What's your rating?
Rating.
What's your
Okay.
rating?
My rating, it's a great book, and my book, despite being extra corny at times, I would say it's a solid 9 for me, I think. And
nice.
audiobook was great. I will say, no doubt, Mark Thompson's the best. However, I've listened to a lot of his recent, especially some of the Thrawn, new canon Thrawn audiobooks. And
Yeah.
some of the voices, I kind of started slipping into the personalities of some of those other characters that he performs. So
Yeah.
I was distracted by that a little bit, so maybe a little bit less on the audiobook side. But I was just so thrilled that we're getting more Legends audiobooks, unabridged at least, that I don't even want to touch the score. 9 it is.
Right. Yeah, your critique, and I agree, I'm in the same boat, is effectively, I've listened to too many Star Wars audiobooks.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's your fault more than it is his.
Mhm.
Right.
That's fair.
Right, sure.
That's fair.
Freddie, what's your score?
Yeah, I love this. The audio. So the audiobook raised up my level. I should go back and listen to my episodes to see what I gave the first time around. But the audiobook painted some pictures that I was not able to read, if that makes sense, because a lot of the space battles are sometimes, to be honest, I go through the space battle. I'm like, okay, let me see where something happens, because it's just really hard to he did an inverted right hand S turn, and it's really hard to read some of those words. Sometimes it just doesn't float as well as it does when he says it, though. You can think about it without having to read it, and it just gives you a better picture in your head of what is actually happening out there.
Yeah.
And I'd have to say, this is the first time in consuming X-Wing, which I've read countless times. Honestly, I can't even count. Probably my most read Legends book, honestly. That and Truce of Bakura.
Yeah. We've covered it twice on the podcast.
Yeah. But I'd say, listening to it, I understood it, and I was able to picture things that I was never able to picture before, and that just boosted the score intensely.
Yeah.
That's a great way of putting it.
Mm-hmm.
I do kind of come in on the sense of like, I've reread it so many times at this point that it's like, it didn't hit me as fresh and as exciting. I definitely, capital L, loved it my first read through. Enjoyed it a lot my second. This time around, I was kind of like, yeah, okay, Corran, I get it, man. You don't trust anybody, and you're super awesome. There was a lot of me being annoyed with Corran this time around in particular. But I give it a 7.8. I actually am going to come in with a hot take here that this is my least favorite X-Wing book.
They do get better. They get better.
I think that this builds, and the same is true for me with like Alphabet Squadron. The first book introduces the characters. You kind of set the foundation for where you can go with this. And then it soars to incredible heights after. So book 2, I think, is immensely better than book 1, because you're still trying to get a feel for the tone, the style, who the main cast of characters is. I don't love it. And I do have a few gripes with the audiobook, but I did love having it. It's amazing to think I can now just play Rogue Squadron whenever I want.
Yeah.
Just turn it on and listen. And that's never been the case before with an unabridged production. So let's talk about those characters I talked about. This book does feature, of course, a lot of original characters. There is one, however, who really gets his spotlight. He is in the original trilogy, just a few frames here and there. He is in all 3 original trilogy films, but only for a few seconds. That is none other than Wedge Antilles himself. So here's my big question. Let's start with you, Rick. How did Wedge become such a beloved character, despite having so little screen time in the original trilogy?
Good question. I think, by the way, I need to have these like incorporated like a transition little. Pew,
I have so many of those.
I was flying mine around a minute ago, but then like I got too distracted from trying to run the show.
Seriously, me too. I'm over here. Pew, 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 pew. Okay, yeah. So, but yeah, no. Wedge is such a beloved character. I think because, so he has a couple of lines, doesn't he? He's got at least one line in A New Hope, and what I remember of him is sounds really maybe cliche, but he's a solid character, but he's still encouraging. You know, he's a team member. He makes Luke feel like he's part of the team, and I don't know, just like not best bud vibes, but like encouraging mentor vibes. You know,
definitely dad energy.
Yeah,
right?
that could be a dad energy, and so you know he's just homey. He feels like you're comfortable and you're safe with Wedge until he's close by. I'm a cry, dude. Man, yeah, I love Wedge.
I hadn't thought about it like that. He is the dad of Legends. What's your impression? Obviously, Emily, did you know who Wedge was before having read the book? Did you recognize him as an original trilogy character?
Yes.
Okay.
I've heard like bits and pieces through different books. He's been mentioned in some of the short stories in Star Wars Insider.
Right.
So I knew that he was some kind of legend and he was an amazing pilot. And that's about all I needed to know to understand the book. I mean, it's made very clear in that part of the book. I don't get why he became such a big deal. Kind of like, I feel like Wedge Antilles and Boba Fett were 2 characters that came from the original trilogy that I just thought, okay, why do people love these characters so much? Like, what am I missing here? Is there more somewhere that they're getting it from? Now I know that there are books. So.
It's probably because Dennis Lawson is actually Ewan McGregor's real life uncle.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
The actor that played
must
Wedge.
be it.
Yep.
I've always considered Wedge like this. He's like the Tom Brady of Legends. Now, I don't love Tom Brady, as you know, I live in New England, not a Patriots fan. But here's what I mean. What is he, a 12th round draft pick? He was not anybody's first choice as like he's going to be our franchise quarterback. But then once he was on the team, he overperformed. Everybody loved him. He took over. He was flawless. He can do no wrong. Are you with me? Are you tracking? He like wouldn't be your first pick if you're watching the original trilogy and thinking, let's make a book series with that guy. But like once he's on your team, he starts he starts performing. He's like, oh, everybody can get behind this guy. What do you think? Is Wedge the new Tom Brady? Let me know in the Discord. Made that up on the spot. When he gets traded to the Buccaneers, though, that's when it really takes a turn. Well, let me ask you this, Freddie. How does Wedge hold up as a squad member? Was he right to keep Tycho's secret from the rest of the squadron? Obviously, he's like, their commanding officer. He's got to make those tough calls, but he's keeping this huge secret. But then when CORRAN finds it out, everything falls to pieces. Yeah. Was this the right decision for Wedge to keep this massive secret from his team?
So this is an interesting question because I feel like it changes as I change. There's a couple of things that a high risk group doesn't need, and that's added stress or distractions, right? And the second you introduce a distraction, I mean, look at CORRAN HORN. He just wants to yeet everybody's opinion out of the way
and rub his medallion in the meantime.
And rub his medallion as yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
I was gonna use Michael Stackpole's language. It wasn't rubbing his medallion. It's fingering the button, and
he does say fingering quite a bit. Yep.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
It's distracting, actually.
Distracting X-wing. Pew pew.
Thank you, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
I totally forgot what we were talking about. That's a good point, though, Freddie.
That's what I think about, right? He's a leader who's trying to think, okay, priorities. Yes, we should be transparent with each other, but also this is a big deal that's going to take too many people away from their training and their lives. Maybe if down the line when things are a little easier in the world of the New Republic, they're not so stressed out about these things, but they really are living day to day, and you can feel it reading this book. They're living literally day to day. So I think it's a great thing.
I think I have the opposite opinion, which is why I wrote the question in the first place. And I, in a professional sense, have had massive secrets kept from me by superiors, and like, I don't want that again. So like, I've got some, PTSD that's like, I can hear it in the back of my mind. Like, it's just like what happened last time. But I see your point, Freddie. Emily, what's your take on this?
I'm with Freddie on this. I think that it was entirely within Wedge's right to withhold that information. The psychology of warfare is different than the psychology of like the civilian world. You can't tell the average soldier everything because they need to be focused on the one thing that they're assigned to do. So if they know about all the gray areas, then it's going to make their job much more difficult. You can only make so many decisions a day. And so just kind of removing some of the gray and allowing them just to focus on the mission at hand, I think was the right call.
Ooh, look at her with her military insight.
Yeah.
That's
Who
great.
knew that was going to come into play? Not me. Glad it did, though.
Yeah.
However, please disagree with her, Rick, and take my side.
Devil's advocate.
I will be the peacemaker, I guess, between and say there are advantages to both sides in this argument. I don't know. My first thought was with the I don't know, the keep the squad in the dark faction because like you guys are saying, a chain of command has to be kept, and you can't. It's actually kind of annoying to me when CORRAN goes off and does his thing. I know that he, has this detective background, so he's doing what he thinks is right, but it really does disrupt their unit. And so, I don't know. But on the other side, they're adults, they're rebels. I mean, let's see. I guess technically they're New Republic, so it's maybe their job, but they're still choosing to be there. And so it's different than if they were an Imperial pilot. You would definitely not expect them to have any knowledge of the mission or the people, because they all just have numbers. Serial numbers basically is who they are in the Empire. So being a New Republic pilot
is different.
Yeah, I would say maybe it could be a little different. And so, and as a people and as characters, it makes more sense for them to know. So this is definitely good conflict in the book, from a literature perspective, that it's really making this personal and kind of taking it out of that military context. So I see both sides.
See, that's exactly why CORRAN ends up getting so frustrated, though, is that this was kept from him. But yeah, his reaction is supposed to be frustrating, supposed to be grating to us as readers. He's got a character arc. They got to start him as this, kind of petty, distrusting character, very self-absorbed, so that he can go on a journey, right? CORRAN has taken a lot of attention in the Youtini world as a character that we love to hate, or that we at least love to tease. I'm not totally sure what our relationship is with the guy, but it's interesting. Let me ask you, though, Freddie, is CORRAN right to be so suspicious of his squad mates? We can debate Wedge is right as the commander, but what about CORRAN? Should he be so suspicious, or why is he such a grating character? Why do people love to hate CORRAN?
I'm a big fan of CORRAN, and there's times where I'm reading his thought process and thinking, yeah, what the heck? Like what? and so I'm not saying I'm anything like that, but CORRAN is jaded. He was in a world of crime, and a world of crime really changes your perspective on people, because you always expect the worst, and you need to trust but verify, right? That's kind of the motto he lives by. And if he's a lone wolf, and because of that, he needs to take care of himself, and he's not used to taking care of other people. and he has major dad issues.
But he's like he's not that much. Yeah, there's a lot of daddy stuff. You just wait for it. It's coming.
That wasn't clear at all.
Is all right. So CORRAN, he's really not that much of a lone wolf. Like they introduce the fact that he has been on a team. We get to meet Iella, right? And who is the other guy? The one that Gil Bastra, right?
Bastra.
He's in there doing something. He's frenemies with Kirtan Lore. Okay, yeah, he's really not that great of a team player, is he? Emily, Rick, either of you want to weigh in on this one? Why is CORRAN so grating to so many people? Emily, you said that you liked him.
Yeah, so I think that if I had read the physical version of the book, I probably wouldn't have liked him as much because I just had a lot of prejudice going in from how much Corey has wildly and openly disliked him. I think, Youtini, we came up with like 100 different CORRAN HORN specific trivia questions. Jared, I think you probably contributed 82 of them at least.
At least half.
You like a lot of
Sounds
them.
right.
So from seeing all of that attention on this one particular character, which I don't think any other character has gotten that much negative energy on Youtini, like we're a pretty positive community. I think if I had read the book, I would have read him as more selfish and annoying than he came across in the audiobook. In the audiobook, just the way the narrator personified him, he seemed very reasonable, and I was on his side, like 100%.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Mark Thompson did give him a very likable, reasonable, smooth voice because he's the character you're having to hear from the most, which at first it was jarring for me. Because for me, CORRAN is pettier than that in the first book.
Dude, I have to say the same exact thing on my side. Oh man, I want to be a hero.
I wouldn't have taken.
Freddie, you're on with the voices tonight, man. You're killing it.
Freddie's on one called "Sip of Sunshine." In particular, there were a few characters in the audiobook that, hey, I've read this book a bunch of times. They were portrayed differently than I would have expected. CORRAN was one, and I thought he did a great job with making CORRAN likable. That's a great point. Rick, why do people love to hate CORRAN? Is he right to be so suspicious of his squad mates?
So honestly, the first time I read this, I didn't hate CORRAN. I liked him a lot. And I guess I read or listen, and I don't. There's like a whole bunch of psychology in this people talk about and all that, but some people don't always associate with the lead character when they read or experience a story. But I'm one of the people that does, tries to just think through, the main character's perspective. And so I liked CORRAN the first time I read him, and so it really wasn't until I was poisoned by our good folks at Youtini, no, I'm just kidding, that I thought anything less of CORRAN, honestly. But second pass, I can definitely see some of the criticism, and we're probably going to get into some of his relationship perspectives and the way that women are portrayed and some of those issues in the book. And so that definitely is I guess, some caution we should throw CORRAN's way a little bit.
He's a bit of a womanizer.
Right. And even, I mean, there's not too much that he participates in the book, but it's almost arrogant, lofty that, it would be below him, to participate. And so that could be part of it. Now, as far as is CORRAN right to be suspicious, I think Freddie said it well. That's kind of who he is. He's gonna check things out. He's gonna be cautious. You can't really turn off that career as a CorSec officer. He's got to do his job to protect the people he cares about. But it's I can see how it definitely creates conflict and maybe not be fun to work with a person like that.
The issue is we'd never get to see him as a detective.
Mm-hmm.
There's some of that in I, Jedi, for better or for worse. But I think if there was here's what we need. We need a prequel novel to Rogue Squadron.
Yes.
A prequel set concurrently with the comics. But all about, because he's not in the comics, all about CORRAN HORN as a detective. CORRAN HORN, space spy. There we go. That's the name. A Star Wars story. Legends. That's the name. Right. So then I would feel maybe like a little bit of his detective side, but I don't quite get there. Rick, you talk about him being iffy in his relationships. Let's talk about who those relationships involve. least for a minute here, a couple of really lovable or hateable, depending on whose side you take, ladies in this particular book. There's a little bit of like the classic 90s, the women fighting over the man.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that they would pass the Bechdel test. Do they ever have a conversation that's not about their relationships? I don't know. But what sets them apart? Obviously, CORRAN is waffling between Mirax and Irisi. Irisi is a pilot in his squadron with him from Thyfera, the Bacta planet, and she's got a wicked British accent in this book. So
I thought
that's
it was
a red
German.
Flag. Oh, is it German?
I thought Irisi was German.
They're all the same.
We'll give it a little farther Eastern European than Great Britain, I'd say.
Okay, no, you're right. Absolutely, definitely. There's no Germany in Star Wars.
We are
I
German.
was about to say, like, I feel like these are just interpretations.
My name is Broad
But I
Chase.
like them
Where's
all.
my beer?
Yeah,
That's not your book, Freddie.
in
You can
Rogue,
read it all.
in Rogue Podron, give them a shout out, a podcast that I love where they do like book clubs with these books. They call Bror Jace Bro Jace because he is so broy.
Yes, that's perfect.
You know, he would love to attend
I love his voice too.
Oktoberfest. What sets them apart for you guys? Mirax, on the other hand, she's down to earth. She's buds with Wedge. They used to work at a gas station together or something like that. What sets them apart as characters? Why is CORRAN in this love triangle?
Oh man. I hope I should see who's watching this show right now, but I think it's too late. I feel like I've been stuck in this situation before of
two women fighting over you.
I wouldn't say fighting over me, but just two women that entered my life at the same time, and I was like, uh-oh, a decision needs to be made. You have like the sultry, smart, I'm not even sure how to call this. She's just super independent, right? No care in the world, and maybe tiptoeing, maybe a smuggler, kind of got that mentality. And then you have like this heiress of the Bacta Empire, and it's like, what's really attractive at this point? Is it the looks, or is it the person who knows your life story? It's the old Romeo Juliet cat and mouse thing between their families. And it's like, what should you do at that point? And I could totally see you getting stuck in that situation.
It does get a little bit, we'll say, cringy, the way that the CORRAN is evaluating the women's appearances and comparing them one to the other. He's like, well, she's not quite as beautiful as the other, but still respectively respectively as far as the looks are concerned. And I'm like, nope, don't want any part in this. This doesn't hold up. That's for sure. How about the feminine perspective on this, Emily?
Yes, I think Mirax reminds him of home. I think that he's at this point in his life where he's lived a lot of lives. He's played out the scenarios enough to know that his normal game isn't enough anymore. Like, he wants to settle down, and he wants something. I think he's more attracted to Mirax for what she represents at this point. Like, she makes him that cake. What's it called? Like rice cake?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how you spell it.
I pictured it as Rice
talks about that a
Krispie
lot.
treats.
I feel like he talks better about Rice Gate than he talks about either of them,
Yeah.
which is kind of funny. So yeah, and then Irisi is kind of just the been there, done that. Like, I've done the heiress thing, I've done the sexy woman thing, but probably Zeltron. I don't even know. I don't want to know.
Just catching on quick, guys.
But
would you say that in terms of like personality, one has one and the other one maybe not so much?
Yeah, I think I'd probably say that. Like, I think that she pushes back enough. Like, Mirax knows enough, and men who have strong personalities like CORRAN typically do like a woman that pushes back and kind of like cuts him down a little bit. And I think that the play, like the wit and the jokes, and then just the reminding of home, I just think that is more attractive to him at this point in his life than Irisi is.
Yeah,
in classic Star Wars fashion, what I love about Mirax is that she has to rescue him.
Oh yeah, that one's good too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I like
now,
that.
my number one takeaway from this whole discussion, I've got to admit I'm a bit sidetracked. I really want like a Patreon exclusive Freddie C gives love advice. Freddie dishes on his love stories because
A
there's
call-in.
clearly something here that he's hiding.
We'll do a call-in.
I feel like we need a whole episode just dedicated to Freddie because he missed the getting to know the host episode, and I
That's
feel like
true.
we all missed out on that. So I think that maybe one day, rainy day,
Yeah.
I'd
bonus
say people have
episode.
gotten to know me over the years.
But the people
Oh
want
my
more. The people want more.
Definitely. Well, let's round out the character segment here with this. There's a huge cast of original characters. We got some heroes. We got some villains. We got some villains that are going to be longer lasting than others. We've got some heroes that bite it. Some heroes that are obviously going to last for decades from here. Let's go around the horn and ask who is your favorite. I didn't even get that one, Rick. That was totally unintentional. I was like, what's he laughing about over there? Who's your favorite rogue? You can't pick the same character. I'm going to steal Tycho. Tycho's off the table. He's my guy.
Okay.
And
know
I'm
who
going
mine
to say
is.
non-British accent Tycho. I didn't love the British accent. I realized in the audiobook you have to give a distinct voice for each character so that when you hear it, you instantly know who it is. And there's so many characters in this. You've got to give them distinct voices. He's from Alderaan, so like, yeah, sure, fancy, maybe. I didn't love it. For me, he's Chris Evans. That's my Tycho. But that's neither here nor there. Rick, let's go to you. Who's your favorite rogue?
Don't say it.
So just want to point out that my wife is throwing shade in the chat. So
Yeah, just
I
ignore
saw
it.
that. I
Move
saw your
along. Nothing
face.
to see here. Move along.
right. Pew pew. Okay. Let's see. Dang it, Tycho is mine. So I gotta think a second.
Do it. Don't do it, Rick.
I've got a list around here somewhere. See if I can find it.
M-Tray.
We'll move on. We'll come back to you, Rick.
M-Tray, I say.
M-Tray. Yes.
Oh man, I
Yes.
loved M-Tray in the audiobook. I feel like it gave him so much more character.
Definitely.
Talk about that, Freddie.
I'd agree with
What
that.
about that did you love?
Yeah. So the fact that he turned into this flyboy smuggler, right? I got you.
I thought about
from-
used car salesman.
A used car salesman. You
Yes.
could say that. I feel like he's like an old time biplane pilot who would just take you into the bush somewhere. He's like a guy you can always rely on. He does a lot of different things. I feel like that's M-Tray.
When that
he's-
secret scrounge protocol is employed.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. He's the proper protocol droid. He's got a different voice, obviously, than C-3PO, but still that formal speak, I'll say. But then when you activate his you got it right, that mode.
You really nailed that.
Mm-hmm.
It really gives a different vibe of what exactly that change felt like, because reading the book you can't really tell, right? It doesn't really mesh, and even the wink, the little wink, you could see that it was
Yeah.
hilarious.
That's good.
Yeah, that was a good one. I would say that M-Tray was never a contender until this audiobook.
I actually thought M-Tray was the spy in my first read through.
Yeah, me too.
We're not going to spoil who it is, but it's not revealed in this book.
Mhm.
I don't think it's revealed till book 3 or 4. It takes a while.
Okay.
So Tycho and Rick's pick is M-Tray. So that one was a sleeper for sure. I didn't see that one coming. Emily, what's your pick? Favorite rogue? We've got Wedge, Tycho, Corran, Nawara, Bror, Rasadi, Gavin, Oral,
Say it.
Irisi, Lujane, Peshk, Riv, and Andorni.
I liked Oral.
Oh,
I thought it was cute.
Charles,
He's like he's always there when you want him to be, and like he's just enough I don't know, he's just like kind of adorable, and you just want to but he can like kill like stormtroopers really easily. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I
he's
just
sneaky.
he's cool. Yeah, I like him. I'd
He
want
thinks
him
of
to be my
himself in the
wingman
third
too.
person.
he's
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah, I
someone you can
know.
trust.
Yeah.
Yes, like he's like your ride or die.
Like
And I
you
like
could
that
you
about
could
him.
definitely tell that Horan.
Uh-oh.
Corran. Horn.
What is a horn corn? Is that something you buy at the store?
Nothing to see here.
Yeah, let's keep moving. Move along.
Oh, yes. Move along.
CORRAN HORN, you could definitely see that he's the perfect person that he would never mistrust. Always rely on him to have his back.
Yeah. Good
Like,
wingmate
like
for
Laurel.
sure. Definitely.
He's certainly quirky, so that there's that to love. He is, I think, Charles from the Living Forest. I think he is his favorite character who's not Obi-Wan Kenobi. One of his very favorite Star Wars characters. So there's that.
Whose is that? You said whose opinion?
Charles.
Charles. Okay. Cool.
Henkel. There it is. I was really blanking on his last name. We got two guys with the same initials as CORRAN HORN. Got Corey Hilton and Charles Henkel. I smell a conspiracy. And final pick of the draft, Freddie. Who's your favorite rogue?
I'm so glad nobody said mine. I feel like everybody. The last time we had this conversation, you picked my guy again, or maybe I picked him. But I really am a big fan of Noara. Noara is my most favorite character. Every time I read him, I just love how he's like, these guys are having a serious moment. And he comes in, excuse me, guys, like if you could rule on this affair that we're having,
When they have like these drinking games and he's like arbitrating their discussions in the pub, which is a lot of fun. I do want to give a shout out, honorable mention to Riv Shield, the Wolfman, who is like got a bromance with Gavin. They're like best friends, a boy and his dog, if you will, or a boy and his Wolfman. So there's that. I want to give him that shout out there as well. We talked about the characters. Let's at least briefly hit a couple of the big questions here before we close out the show. Some of the overarching plot points. Freddie, you mentioned earlier in the show that you found the combat too technical to follow. I think maybe I'm in the minority here because I've seen that complaint a lot. I'm interested in Rick and Emily's opinion as well as everybody here in the chat. I actually, maybe it's because I trained myself early on as like a 10-year-old how to read this stuff.
How to read.
I was like, I remember leaping through. No, how to read the space combat. I remember.
That makes sense.
Leaping through an actual Webster's dictionary, a physical thing. When I got to the word port side, I'm like, don't know what that is. Flip, 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 flip. Oh, okay, got it. Aft. What the heck is aft? And so then I just began. I had like my little Legos in my room. I would listen to the abridged audiobook and I would fly them. And I would try to follow the space combat physically. I think what we are lacking on Youtini.com is a guide to Legends space combat. Like an infographic.
Yes.
We've lost Rick.
I'm so excited about that.
We're gonna need a towel.
I want an infographic of port and aft and all the other ones. So
did you say
port has 3 or 4 letters, and so does left.
Yep.
That's how you remember that. And then if you're the usually, this is how I remember, guys. I'm sorry, I gotta do this.
Do it. I've got my own thing too.
What happens if you're in the engine room? The captain's gonna be mighty stern at you, so that's the stern. And then when you bow, you go forward, so it's the front of the boat.
Oh, there you go.
Nice.
It's like the Macarena up in here with that. So for me, I can follow every last little thing they describe. I think it's described infinitely better than canon space combat, which is so much more focused on the character.
Yes.
I can follow physically everything that's happening in these books. Now, is it because I've read them 5 or 6 times? Maybe. There's also that.
Yeah.
There's also that. Who's to say? All right. So Freddie says it's too technical. I vehemently disagree and say I want more of it.
Yes.
Rick, are you with me on this one?
I'm 100% with you, dude. So
yes.
I'm a huge nerd, right? And I actually went to sailing camp as a kid, so all of those ship terms I knew, and I was in a program called Civil Air Patrol growing up as well, and so
that's right.
Got to do some flying, and I've lifelong dreamed to have my pilot's license, and so any kind of like fighter jock movie or story, I'm all about. I even have.
Rick, we're gonna have to play shirtless volleyball next time we get together.
No, we don't. But I have my HOTAS controller. It's an Air Force thing, I guess. But so yeah.
Oh, nice.
I have my HOTAS controller because that's the only way that you can play a fighter squadron game is with a throttle and stick, man. So anyway,
do shirtless volleyball, and we have to wear our sunglasses while we're
I
doing
will ruin shirtless volleyball for everyone if I participate.
That's true.
There's more where that came from.
We do have a woman on the show, so maybe we should stop talking about shirtless volleyball.
Yep.
All this is to say that classically, this book has been understood as the Star Wars meets Top Gun book, right?
That's fair. Yes.
It definitely came across that way, for sure.
Yeah. But no,
Emily, whose side are you on, the technical or the non-technical?
I liked the technical in the audiobook. I think if I was reading the book, I would skim it. Not a big fighter person anyway. I like reading more about people and relationships than I do about the action scenes. That's not as exciting to me, but I think they did it really well. He was very clearly knowledgeable about all the technical terms. And my husband really loves Tom Clancy books. So I've read a bunch of them. He's a big Navy guy. So like I've got the port and starboard stuff down.
Nice.
So that's kind of how I've got that under wraps.
That's it, I think it's just the fact of when I take in information, I can read it and it's just going to flow right through me, but I hear it and it triggers such a different reaction, right?
That's fair.
I can actually paint the picture in my head because when I read a book, I have to paint that picture. Sometimes you're reading turning left or turning to his port, hard turn to his starboard side, and you're just like, wait, okay, let me picture that. Okay, got it. And it just gets to the point where you're like, you know what? I'm gonna get to the next page.
and there's no shame in the skimming either. I just think that it makes for some interesting storytelling, because if you were reading a couple hundred Star Wars books, it's like, let's be honest, I have. If every time you get to space combat, you're like, space combat, skipping it, it really robs Star Wars of a lot of its, Star Wars books of a lot of their magic. There's some really interesting storytelling maneuvers that are achieved in the way they describe space combat. The way that somebody can loop around a moon, like the Han Solo, the slingshot around the moon. That's a classic. And the way that Luke is able to, what does he do? Like some kind of a maneuver when he's stuck in a tractor beam in the Thrawn trilogy. I mean, obviously I followed it because I can't even describe it.
I feel like what I really prefer in Star Wars, like combat, is when like the Thrawn books do this really well. They like some idiot in like the main room, like what is it? The cabin, like the control room of the ship. The bridge. Yeah. So some idiot in the bridge is like, what? And then they explain it all in like dummy terms. And that is just wonderful for me. Because I'm like, okay, so that's what they were doing. So it's great because you have like an interpreter at the end. So you don't feel like you missed something. Speaking,
I'm not
really
sure I thought
from a
about
personal
it like
experience.
that. Okay. Okay.
And I'll say too, I can read that and not even follow everything word for word. I guess what I'm trying to say is you don't have to follow the specifics of the technical stuff that's happening, but it still is an immersive experience because even if you're an outsider to all of that, which I mean, of course I am too. I don't fly anything that's a fighter, anything, but it still creates that experience for you. So I think that's worth it. Even if you can't follow it, if you maybe not skim it, but you just kind of appreciate it without understanding it, I guess.
Yeah. I could say that you can read it and sense the urgency without having to understand it. That's for sure.
That's a good way to say it. Yeah.
For me, it really slows down. Like the way it's described in a book, it's like the what I would picture in a movie. It would happen, boom, 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 boom.
Oh yeah,
it'd be over in 2 or 3 minutes. In the book, one maneuver can take 2 or 3 paragraphs to describe.
Right.
And so for me, it just slows down like the Matrix. That's the way I see it all happening.
Interesting.
I just love what is it? Han Solo in A New Hope. I know some maneuvers. Just go slightly to the left.
Oh my gosh. Well, Freddie, when we discussed this book 2 years ago, I asked you this question. It's going to hit totally different now. Now that we have a Rogue Squadron movie announced, I asked you then, what would you like to see in a Rogue Squadron movie? It's a totally different question this time around, isn't it? You have a guess?
I'm not entirely sure because I've got this audiobook in my head, which is super fresh, right? It's a totally different. I feel like it's almost a different book for me. And obviously we can't do the Top Gun thing anymore, but I have a feeling like the amount of people that are going to go get pilot's license after this is going to be really high. And I feel like it's because we're going to see pilots in action. We're going to see them in the Star Wars world where we've only seen maybe like clips here and there, a minute at a time, 5 minutes at a time, but this is going to be a more in-depth movie. So I'd like to just see what it would be like to see a modern version of like what battle is going to feel like as a pilot, where these days every day matters because you might not be around, right? And I'd like to just see that portrayed in movie format. And I feel like it's going to be, I'm leaning a lot on the like Saving Private Ryan kind of emotional thing. I'd like to see that.
Okay. For me, I don't want to see the direct adaptation of the book. I would like just like 2 or 3 really quality Easter eggs, like a lawyer, a Twi'lek squad mate named Noir Event. Like I don't want the whole squad. I'd like one of them, like Oral Quirk. Let's just have one repeat character from the books. Like that's all I need.
Yeah.
The Wolfman, Riv Shield. I guess if you're gonna have Riv, then you have to have Gavin. And if you have to have Gavin, he has to get love advice from CORRAN HORN. It's like if you give a mouse a cookie, but except for with love advice from CORRAN HORN and a Wolfman.
Whistler.
You want to see Whistler? That'd be cool. Yeah, it's exactly.
That should be a book.
A little Easter egg like that.
Yeah.
Sure. Rick, what's your pick for what you'd like to see in the Rogue Squadron movie?
So I have really high expectations for the movie, but really low expectations that they're going to do much to the Rogue Squadron or X-Wing series books. I think that they're probably going to disregard it entirely, and hope they do more than that, but that's my expectation. I had to learn similar, to keep my expectations in check. And so I'm expecting an awesome story that, like you said, maybe has some Easter eggs, but I don't even think they're going to be front and center. I think we're going to have to find them in the background. But Rick,
I think that's valid. That's super valid.
So we'll see.
And in some ways, that's good because then it doesn't ruin the books.
Yeah, that's true.
You can still read them, right? You can still
clear.
read them, and just like everything right now, I feel like you can still sort of read everything without it being like, that didn't happen. I mean, there's times where it happens, but I like that point of view, Rick. That's a good one.
Yeah, thanks, man. I think I'd say too, though, that I do want to see a ton of space combat.
Yes.
If we could put like the last 30 minutes of Rogue One as like a template of lots of ships fighting, that alone will make it worth it for me. Honestly, okay, if there's not even that much character development but a lot of space action, I'm gonna be happy. I hope they have some character. Yeah, hope they have some space action or characters, but yeah, lots of action and jargony fighter stuff. Man, I'm all about it. Sounds good.
Now, Scooby Joe makes a great point here in the chat that Patty Jenkins mentioned the Rogue Squadron books on Twitter, and he believes she even tagged Michael Stackpole. So, gotta admit, Joey, that's the best news I've heard all day.
Yeah. I haven't played the video game yet, though.
That's fair.
I still have never beaten it. I should do. I thought about making this a whole event because I can never just take things in bite-sized, manageable chunks. I've got massive, grand ideas. I thought, Freddie, we could do like a playthrough, like a game nights where you and I play some Rogue Squadron. Maybe one of these days. I've got the
in the wintertime game. It has to. You take me back to my most favorite and memorable Christmas. That was it, man.
Thanks for the invite, there, bud.
Rick is going to be playing volleyball
because I know that Freddie has the equipment for like the gaming. I don't know. Are you a gamer?
Not much, but I have more equipment now than I did as a kid. So,
okay, there's that. Emily, final thoughts here. What would you like to see in the Rogue Squadron movie?
I want 80s and 90s nostalgia, through the roof. That's what I want.
Yep.
Like a Captain Marvel-esque kind of.
Yes, exactly like that. That was the thought I had.
The tone. Some beepers.
I don't want much. I just want like a massive amount of like 80s and 90s references.
I love that.
Is that too much to ask?
That'd be so cool.
Yeah.
Crash a Star Destroyer through a blockbuster.
I wanna.
Yeah, something like that.
Yes. Can we have an action sequence with Danger Zone blaring in the background? That'd be great.
Yes.
Danger Zone. All right, I'm gonna go watch Top Gun after this. Does the new one come out? Wasn't there a new one? Did that ever happen?
Yeah, I think. Well,
I don't know.
It got postponed with the pandemic.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Did they
I
ever?
know it's coming if it isn't already.
We'll have to find out. Well, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Our next show is going to be Star Wars movies without movies, inspired by this summer's Shadows of the Empire event. Our next roundtable coming up before you know it. it's actually literally just a couple of weeks away. I got to get to reading is Darth Bane: Path of Destruction. We are going to tackle the entire Darth Bane trilogy throughout. We'll get through it the rest in the springtime, so before very long. And then after that, of course, we are going to get to the Boba Fett Blood Ties omnibus that's coming out. That will be our December roundtable as well, if you would like to follow along by reading with us. That does it for this week. Thank you for joining us on Legends Look Back. We want to give a special shout out to our incredible patrons for your amazing support, specifically to Cheryl Bell, Patrick Ortiz, Carl Sander, OK Indar on our Jedi High Council, as well as Elizabeth Cloutier, Jason Mitchell, Sally and Chris Eilerson, Freddie C., and somebody else who I've also left out that was on it last week, didn't make it. You know who you are. You're amazing. Thank you for your amazing support. If you'd like your thoughts around the show, you can email us at legendslookback@youtini.com. Send us a message in the Legends Look Back Discord channel. Leave us a message somewhere else. Lost my train of thought. Drop a comment. Hey, we would love to hear from you. You can also comment on Twitter directly at Legends Look Back, or at me personally. I'm at Jared Q. Mays, or Freddie
at BIIIGGGS Biggs. Wake up, Freddie.
See if that one's taken. How about you, Rick?
Rick at Rick_Grace.
And Emily
at Darth Daybeck.
Wonderful. If you're looking to buy some of these books, such as, hey, we could get the classic Rogue Squadron book. You can get the new Essential Legends Collection Rogue Squadron. We've got all kinds of different options there on which you can pick up your X-Wing books. You can go over to the book profile on Youtini.com, click the Amazon link in the profile, and give us a few cents to help keep the lights on. After that, you can leave us a review and let us know what you think. Remember, everybody, to keep the Youtini fan code and be a force for positivity in the fandom and not a total drag like CORRAN HORN. May the Force be with you.